Hi, my name is Jay Lewis, and today I'm going to talk about how to manage assumptions in a simulation. What I'm showing on my screen is a project I'm currently working on with orbital debris. Uh, but first, a little background. I started doing simulations in high school for fun, and my first one was a um, kind of like spiders. I did a little program with spiders that evolved, and every generation they would mutate a little. The world had food raining down, and I wanted to see, could I make a system where there would be some that evolved to feed more like plants, and others more like animals that ate them, or animals that ate other animals, and wanted to get like a little mini thriving ecology. Um, so let me talk about managing assumptions in simulations first, and then I'll talk about how that came out at the end. Uh, the advantage of doing a spreadsheet like this is three. First, um, anyone looking at can see where the assumptions came from. So if you were just making guesses, uh, you could show that this is a guess, and you could add extra explanation, why it's a reasonable guess, and you later will know to put something more solid in that later. But for now, it just gets you some movement. Um, the second benefit is the software can pull these numbers directly. So when you write code, it's very easy to use spreadsheets as references. And instead of having to rewrite the code every time you make a change here and then rewrite the code. And then rerun the code. When you do that, it's getting the latest. And the third benefit is that you can keep making the model more complicated. So for now, we're only looking at mass per orbit, but there are many other factors to consider, and this might be good to answer a very basic question as as you go. People will bring up other concerns about orbit inclination and are these masses a whole bunch of little things or a few big things? So the model, you can just keep building as you uh, find more assumptions, you add them to this spreadsheet and then reference them in the simulation. Uh, so the final comment, my high school simulation, I discovered the assumptions made the the most impact. So if I started a system, so this example on my screen is a project I'm working on for orbital debris salvage. And an initial question is how much is where? And makes a big difference. These higher orbits, like geostationary, very far from the Earth, um, versus low Earth orbit, which is the closest. Um, this column is the mass, and then the I upper and lower is inclination, which is um, an angle. And putting the assumptions here, you can see I'm focused on just these three orbits because those three account for the bulk of it. Um, the statistics assumptions are shown here. So that's the first benefit of having this in a spreadsheet is you can show where did these assumptions come from. The second benefit is the numbers themselves can be pulled directly into the software. That gives you the ability to update it later without having to rewrite any software. As soon as you change this number and rerun the simulation, you get the the impact of what happens when you make that change. Um, and then the third benefit is you can make the model more complicated. So let's say our initial simulation is only looking at the mass. Where is the mass? Which orbit is the mass in? A more sophisticated model will also take into account the inclination. So if something is in the same inclination, it takes relatively less energy to move within that orbit. When things are in different inclinations, it's essentially a different orbit. So it's like going this way versus this way, and the amount of energy to get there might be much more if you're having to change inclination. Um, so that's a more sophisticated model. You can see this isn't filled out yet. Um, and you can just keep making a model more and more sophisticated and add more and more assumptions. And later, anyone that has a question, if they disagree with your model, it's because either they have a different model in their head, or they may have better, they may have be basing it on reality, and the simulation is incomplete. Eventually, you converge on it's good enough. And so the initial assumption, um, I ended up with raining a lot of food, and everything ended up being predators. So the um, if I had a large amount of food, everything that tried to be a plant would get eaten by something else. There's a lot of energy in the system, essentially. Um, and if I dialed down the food, I would get everything being a plant. So nothing wanted to move and would just sit there and accept what amount of food it got. Um, and and it's not just the amount of food, it's also how much energy does it take to get more food. And so a system with very little energy was very energy conserving. So there's two more videos you can watch after this one. One is about more about assumptions and simulations. Another is an actual evolution simulation I just watched this morning. Way better than what I did in high school, but similar concept. The assumptions are the key. Thank you for watching.